We'll go ahead and call to order the Wednesday, April 22nd special city council meeting. Roll call, Farland. Here. Gordon. Here. Kramer is absent, as well as Mackey this evening. Morris. Here. Going to approve the agenda. Any changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Motion by Farland, second by Gordon. Farland.
Yes.
Gordon. Morris.
Yes.
Takes us to our public hearing on fiscal 27 budget public hearing. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing? No.
Second.
Motion by Gordon, second by Morris. Farley.
Yes.
Gordon. Morris.
Yes.
In the public hearing.
All right, thank you very much. Wanted to share the presentation tonight on the FY 27 budget. You should have PowerPoint to follow along, and then I also have it on the screen. I want to talk a little bit about the budget process for the city. The process itself starts in October, where the city departments start doing some preliminary budgeting. We wait for November for the rollback or the state rollback to come out, and that lets us give us an idea of what to expect from a state level. Then we have a budget session that the Iowa League of Cities puts on in November each year, and that gives us additional guidance for budgeting so that by December 1st, we have draft budgets. We have a good idea of state and local information that goes into preparing the budget. So we begin a draft budget. It's just a draft budget until January 1, when those valuations come out from the county. That's when we can really prepare the draft budget for council for early January. So most of January is spent. The city council spends a lot of time in January going through all of the budget items, so that by early to mid-February, we have an idea of what that levy rate is going to be for the city. And then in preparation for the property tax levy requirement, that's that new requirement where there's a mailer that goes out to every household, and it says when that public hearing is going to be on the property tax levy. Ours was April 1st here, and we had a similar presentation. So this is part 2. So we had the property tax public hearing on April 1st. That basically says that's what the levy rate is proposed. It will not go higher, it can go lower. Ours has not changed. That same levy rate is what's being proposed. So tonight, this is a public hearing for the whole budget. And this is also an approval for the adopting the budget. And then after this, a copy will go to the state, a copy will go to the county auditor that certifies the budget, and it's due by April 30th. So this public hearing is part of the requirement for the city council to adopt the FY 27 budget. So starting with the presentation, some of this may sound familiar because a lot of this information we covered at the property tax public hearing. Understanding city levy rates is a 3-part process. First, you need to understand that the Iowa property tax system is based on valuations that the county auditor determines on every property within the city. Then the state sets a rollback, which decides how much of that property is taxable. And then of that taxable portion, taxing agencies have an opportunity to levy against the taxable portion of the property. The difference between an assessed valuation and a taxable valuation that is assigned by the county is that the assessed valuation is the 100% value of the property as assigned by the county auditor. The rollback, once applied, whatever the state decides the rollback is considered the taxable value. So going forward for FY 27, the rollback is going to be 44.5% 0.53%, which means of $100,000 valuation, assessed 100% valuation, $44,534 is taxable of that property. The rollback for this particular fiscal year is 46.3428. So the higher the rollback, the more option for taxes to be levied by agencies like the city. The lower the rollback, the less there is to tax. Because this year it'd be 46,000 of that 100,000 is taxable. Next year, 44,000 of that 100,000 is taxable. This next graph shows the property tax collections from all classes, residential, commercial. This is by all cities in the state for FY25. So as you can see, with 56% of all the taxes collected in the state by cities, 56 of that comes from residential properties, and 21% of that comes from commercial properties, and 13% from ag. Now, obviously, there's not a lot of ag that's within city limits, which is why that is the lower one. Now, of those property taxes collected in all cities for FY25, those taxes were then distributed 40% to K through 12 schools, 30% to cities, 22% to counties, and 8% to all others, which is there's a variety of taxing agencies. So what are your taxing agencies? There's a sheet right here that if you look across the highlighted section, that shows you this is for Johnson County, the city of Solon for this current fiscal year. That shows all the taxing agencies and what is being taxed. So when you pay your taxes, it gets divvied up according to this chart. And then the flip side has a little bit more of an explanation as to what some of those taxing agencies are. So for the city of Solon, part of your taxes are going to the county assessor, the Ag Extension Council, community colleges, the school district, state of Iowa, and the city. Not all cities are paying township, but a few are, not Solon. Solon does not pay a township levy. So of that portion that is taxable, then cities are allowed to collect a consolidated general fund levy. Prior to House File 718 a few years ago, every city was able to collect $8.10 for every $1,000 of valuation. House File 17 changed that dynamic. And so now cities can, it's changed because if you are a city that has grown 6% higher, like the city of Solon has, your consolidated levy is scaled back from 810. This year, though we did grow, we did some TIF askings that altered our, as you remember, the more TIF you ask for, the lower general fund. Our TIF ask created a lower general fund levy, so we were able to ask for the full 810 this year. So as you look at our levy certification as a whole, how does the 810 fit into the $11.53 tax levy that the city is going to be asking for in FY27? So the 810 is that consolidated general fund levy. Then in addition to that, there's approximately $1.31 that goes going toward property insurance, 65 cents going to FICA and IPERS for city employees, approximately 80 cents going toward employee health benefits, and 67.5 cents going toward water improvements, which is a voted levy from years gone by. So that's how we get that 1153, and the total amount that the city will bring in for FY27 is $2,206,000. So the proposed levy rate for FY27 is 11.53383. The current levy rate is 11.01255. This next page shows the history of the valuations of the city as well as the levy rates for the past few years. This slide shows the general fund property tax that we have received, which is in the dark blue. That's that consolidated general fund, that 810 that I talked about. And then it shows of 2026, we're still in the process of collecting that. And then in 2027, the amount is $1,549,251. Now, because of the situation that we have assessed value, a rollback, and a levy rate, you can't just look at the levy rate and say my taxes are going to go up and down just based on the city's levy rate, because those three things are connected. This scenario shows that even though the levy rate for the city is going up, if the property value stays the same, the actual taxes paid will go down. This chart shows the area levy rates for the current fiscal year. Solon is currently the fourth lowest in Johnson County at 11.01255. Of those general fund revenues, this is how those revenues come in to the city. General fund collects 58% of its revenues from property taxes, 14% in licenses and permits, 8% is garbage, 7% library because the county pays a portion toward the library, 5% recreation, and then you'll see miscellaneous interest and hotel motel tax. So that is the whole of the dollars coming into the general fund. The city of Solon is required to pay IPERS for all part-time and full-time city employees. The employee pays 2.9% of their wages, and the employer, the city of Solon, pays 9.44% of the wages. And you can relate that back to that levy item that we talked about for levying for FICA and IPERS. This budget reflects a 6% increase in property insurance and a 12% increase in health insurance, which was very close. The personnel committee had just reviewed that information and it was just under 11%. So it came in very close. General fund expenditures. So again, there's the general fund, and this chart shows how the dollars received are expended, with 31% going to public works, 19% general government, 14% library services, 10% public safety, 9% for each recreation and parks, and 8% for garbage and recycling. The general fund is the fund that manages the bulk of city operations. That's why that consolidated general fund number is so important each year because that is what finances the bulk of the city's operations, which are police, fire, streets, library, recreation, parks, administration, and garbage. Those all fall under the general fund. But in addition, there are other funds that are budgeted, and those are special revenues. These are categories in the state form. Special revenues include trust and agency. Trust and agency are accounts that are, if donations are received for the library, then those funds go into the library trust and agency, and they're spent and held in reserve just for the library. If they come in for the recreation center, then we hold those for the recreation center. So they don't get thrown into general fund where they can get kind of lost in the shuffle, so to speak. These are intentional funds for a designated purpose that are held in trust for a specific area. Road use tax comes into as a special revenue. Employee benefit levies, when those we collect those levies for IPERS and insurance and health benefits, they go into a special levy revenue. It's not thrown into the general fund. And then local option sales tax is also considered a special revenue. Tax increment financing has its own category and fund. Debt service also has its own category and fund, and that is because all bond payments are required to be paid out of debt service. Obviously, we don't collect a levy for all those payments, so those payments are getting paid with TIF or local option sales tax, and that money is transferred into the debt service that then is paid out. We're required to pay the bonds out of debt service. Capital projects is another category and fund. What that does is it allows us to track a special project, say it's a water project and or street light, for example, and that's a special project. If we budgeted that and track that within our general streets fund or our road use, it's difficult to see or track over the years what's operating costs and what's it's difficult for budgeting purposes. So the capital projects fund allows us to track those projects within that project. And then once it becomes a standard operating expense, whatever, if there's one, then that would transfer over to the general fund or appropriate department. Then the last one is proprietary, and that's water, sewer, storm drainage, and recoupment. Those are intended to be a business type of account where there's money coming in, and then the money expended is offset by the proceeds of the dollars coming in. For the FY27 budget, total revenues are $8.6 million and total expenditures are 7.7. That's a difference of a little over $900,000. However, this council has been very diligent and intentional about setting dollars aside for the new wastewater treatment plant, because every dollar saved is a dollar that doesn't have to be borrowed. And so it's been real intentional to make sure that we're trying to build up a good cash reserve to help offset those costs of the wastewater treatment plant. That's all I have for the presentation.
And it's very thorough and very familiar. The tax levy, public hearing that we had. With that, is there any questions from the audience regarding the presentation?
I might be a little late to this. This is Greg's curiosity. What is the assessor?
The county assessor?
Yeah. Why is that not part of the county budget? Why is that separate? I'm just curious. Do you have any idea? If not, I will ask somebody.
You need to ask them. That's a good
I will ask
question.
that question. Some doesn't, I'm sure it's been that way for 100 years, which I don't necessarily agree with. But I will ask that question and come back for an answer.
No, I attend meetings where we go over the assessor's budget.
It's kind of like on our property tax, the Jack question that I've never got an answer to yet. Kind of like the elephant world.
Right, I wonder if it's just outsourced.
Yeah, it could be,
Because I think like Iowa City has their own assessor, like Des Moines has their own assessor, so I wonder if they just give everyone the option and only really big cities pay, we'll do it ourselves.
I only bring it up because the city of Iowa Cities is less than the counties.
Well, the city of Iowa City has no assessment site, too.
Right.
There's just
Right.
assessors.
Just kind of curious, that's all.
They are a taxied agency,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. The other question I have, Kenny, and that been watching it a little bit, do we worry about if we pass some type of law in Des Moines to affect what we're doing?
We worry very much about that.
That's kind of what I thought. It seems like they're just fighting about things, and then trying to make sense of things. Yeah.
Hashtag government.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right, with that, we have a motion to close the public hearing.
Don't move.
Motion by Morris, second by Gordon Farlier.
Yes.
Gordon, Morris.
Yes.
Takes us down to new business, item 5, this will be resolution 2619, fiscal year 27 budget adoption. Any further discussion after the public hearing we have?
I'll move to approve resolution 2619.
Okay.
Motion by Farlier, second by Morris. Farlier.
Yes.
Gordon. Morris.
Yes.
Takes us to item 6, Trail Ridge Estates concept. Cameron.
Yes, thank you. We recently, Dave Schekinger and I recently met with Watts Group. Randy Lang is here representing Watts Group. So they have had a phased plan over recent years. The most recent phase was parts 3A and 3B. And you can see in the plats that they were kind of a little bit of a disconnected parts. They'd like to kind of alter their phasing plan a little bit. And what was previously considered part 6, they would like to now make part 4, make that their next phase, which would be part 4. Dave Schekinger and I share a little bit of concern just for the fact of the disconnection that this makes as far as having 2 unfinished streets. However, we are very sensitive to the fact that the real estate market is driven by the economy. So it's not the first time we've seen a developer want to kind of alter their phasing plan. There just are things to consider. And because of this is kind of outside of the intended phase, I felt better coming to the council, getting the council's blessing before they've submitted a formal application. What I don't want to happen is like their original part 3, where it went all the way through P&Z and then ultimately council did not support it. We want to avoid that, and we want to make sure any concerns are identified up front. And if council has any of those concerns, then we're addressing those through the planning and zoning process or staff review. Again, in Dave's memo, he's identified that his concerns is that this just doesn't follow a natural flow. It doesn't allow those natural streets to go through. Public Works talked about some concerns about snow plowing. We addressed the fact during our meeting with Randy and his team that what about fire trucks? What about buses? What about the folks that are going to live on this street for 2 years? That doesn't go anywhere. So those are the things that I'm asking the council to discuss and consider, and then give us some guidance on how you feel about this preliminary plat moving forward as presented.
So let me get this right, where it says part 4 and part 6 are gonna be swapped.
Well, originally part 6, they've had many plans, but the latest plan, part 6, where it says part 5, that was part 6. Now they're changing it. So basically, am I right, Randy?
Yeah.
So part 5 was part 6, or I'm sorry. Part 5 was part 4 originally, and part 4 was part 6. This is their new phasing plan. So the intent was part 3B would be part 4, and that would create that connection from 3A to 3B. That was the original plan. Now they're asking to deviate from that plan. Part 4 would now become what was part 6, and now it just basically shifts things around. But again, what that leaves is we now have 2 streets unconnected. 3B was supposed to connect to 3A with part 4, which was supposed to be the next phase. Now part 4, which we just want to keep the numbers consecutive. If part 6 now becomes part 4, we're just creating the misalignment and opening potential.
Basically trying from the outside in.
Well, and Randy can explain
sure.
kind of their reasoning, which I think is important part of the conversation.
Yeah, and is everybody looking at this map, Kimmy? The one that John would have sent, the
Mhm.
newer one?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so
I see which one you're talking about.
yeah, absolutely. I brought a few extra larger copies just in case. To help provide a little, make this a little
Perfect.
clearer. And then I did print off a few just notes about being more intentional about the development. Conceptually, I don't know. I can share this with you guys as well, but, thank you for having us, by the way, but, as Tammy had mentioned, we, when we do the original sequencing, when we started the development, we did so through a master developer agreement. And we really didn't know what to expect in terms of what the real estate market would do. What we have today is a strong demand for narrower lots, which is what phase 4 would be. So those would provide private yard ownership. They'd be a little smaller house. They'd be at a more achievable price point. We have seen some demand and some success for this. That
Here in
differs.
Solon or other projects you're going pretty well.
What's that?
Here in Solon or other projects you're working on.
Here in Solon, as well as we actually, in part 3A, we did narrow a lot right there. Right where it starts.
Yeah.
And so that one right there, and it was the first to actually go this spring, and we've had a lot of inquiries internally about, hey, is there going to be another opportunity for a 2-car garage, smaller, narrower lot, smaller house, more like a 2,000 square foot home? We do have some smaller homes on the north side of 382.
Sure.
Those share with a adjoining unit, like a duplex, a lot. So there's a strong desire from the market that we're hearing that is 2-car garage, 4-bed, 3-bath, more attainable price point.
And what would that price be? Guessing,
The most recent one,
Curiosity.
the most recent one that sold was $459.
Okay.
What you see in part 3A and B, the stuff that's on the north side of the pond, we still believe there's a need for those. However, those larger lots come with a larger house usually. And so, what we're trying to do is provide options for the community for first, second time buyers and or those looking to downsize. We've actually seen a lot of that as well in newer
Wasn't this
construction.
recently talked about a long time ago? With a narrower lot, weren't those questions there at one time?
We talked, that was when the lot, or when the development went through, that was one of the conversation pieces about having a narrower lot that had a smaller home, they thought different, lower price point as well with it. So I think this lines up with those original conversations, with the exception of timing and kind of sequencing of it. I do like the opportunity to have a lower price point, having these options out there. But I would say I do have concerns, as well as Kimmy mentioned, with fire, with snow plowing. It looks like the part 4 on here, there could be room.
Yeah, so what we actually, when Cammy,
Just
sorry.
there, it looks like there is opportunity for a plow, a bus, garbage truck to turn around on part 4. But I don't see that with 3B that's on here, so I don't know if it would be something if. Council had support to move forward with this. Could the street run through where this part 5 is showing to prevent those two kind of dead ends? Cause right now, I'm not sure when garbage is going, snow clearing is going, anything like that. Are they, you know, if you're having to back down the plows on 3B.
Yeah.
But that is, I'm just trying to think from that, if think fire, buses, garbage, snow clearing, all that, that would be my concern. Where if it's that way currently, but if we thought. Or it's showing part 5, if that was gonna be a through street soon after, it's probably something that we were okay with at the time, knowing it's gonna be very temporary. Not knowing when that part 5 would come through now.
Sure, yeah, I think, understandable. One of the things that we had talked with Dave and Cammy about was if it was needed, we would have a turnaround there. You can see right now in part 3A and B, and then everything was in part 1 and 2, we do have a number of those larger lots. And so what we're trying to do is present the community with some variety of housing. We were intentional about, and it gets confusing when you start to think about all the different phases and the numbers changing. That is why we intentionally moved part 5 up in sequence. We're reacting to the market, and with part 5, we anticipate that those would be more people coming to us and saying they would like to build a house that overlooks the pond. Today, there's a number of those lots. So our intent was to be intentional about phase 4 and phase 5, so that in the future, we would have that temporary turnaround at 3B, but eventually we would punch part 5 through after 4. You'll notice we did carry the street all the way through part 4, so that we would have that ability to turn around. There would be a way to get plows, fire truck if needed, that sort of thing. To be honest with you, part 6, we pushed out very intentionally, because you can see that white area on the map. We don't have any control over that ground today. We are very engaged with that landowner. We've had lots of conversations with them. However, it wouldn't make sense to put in streets to that just yet. So we see that as more longer range. But really, we were hopeful that we could accommodate with those turnarounds in 3B and part 4 and still provide the community with those alternate housing options. You know, I think these are hard to sequence out when you start in 2019, and then you actually get feedback from the market, and it kind of drives where you need to go next. And that's really the leading influencing factor here. And then obviously, from an infrastructure standpoint, conceptually it aligns with everything that we had originally presented. So that's just a little backdrop on why the request for phase 4 to come next, and to be able to have that ability to provide that to the community.
I think that the reason behind the want to change it makes perfect sense. With that, I mean, I don't know if you guys have any questions for Randy.
I think I'd be okay with the part 4 scene, as long as that road's there at the end to have the turnaround. But I think there would need to be something at the end of 3B where there's something poured there that we can get trucks turned around there. Would that make sense to you, as if you're pushing snow, they had something?
Yeah, well, even in the fire department standpoint.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, you gotta if you gotta get in like that, you gotta have a cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
and they can turn around.
Yeah.
And, you know, it'd be fine if it was just a temporary
Right.
cul-de-sac that had to turn around.
And we,
Trucks that-
not in Solon, but we have accommodated that in other areas close.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're working with the city on.
I think I would agree with the mayor when he's talking about having the price point and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I just, I'm on the same page as far as the concerns about not only our staff, our volunteer firefighting staff, our garbage staff, our bus drivers, all that kind of stuff, just making sure that they aren't having to put their equipment at risk per se to make sure that their job is done safe.
Yep,
So,
that's understandable.
yeah, you know, with some of those trucks so big, backing them up, you don't want to
Yeah.
back them up a block or 2 blocks. And
Especially coming through an intersection. You don't want it.
yeah, and try and back up on, cars that are coming through there on that main access road.
We actually would be looking at on the west side of 3B, we would be looking at a sidewalk connection up to 4 for some neighborhood connectivity, as well, so,
I think that's important. I really do.
we thought it'd be nice for the neighborhood, obviously, so if we're, going in there and doing that sidewalk, if we could accommodate a spot to Hammerhead or whatever to turn around, in 3B, something we would work with you on.
From a fire standpoint, Greg, if there is a spot to turn a truck around, would you have any other concerns from a fire standpoint?
As long as there's hydrants there.
Yeah, I believe there's a hydrant at each one of those dead ends.
Yeah, yeah, water
Right.
stuff at the end of 3B, so,
Is there any other concerns that were,
The width is normal, right? The regular road
It's-
width is normal.
Yes, it's a city street, yep.
And it's parking lot on both sides.
I don't recall that, Greg.
Do you know?
on which, on 3B,
Yeah,
I do believe so, yes,
my concern would be, just common sense would be, that's a dead end road, we're allowing parking on both sides. That can get narrow quick.
And that could be something we could take the streets committee as well with the existing roads.
Today, we have one house overlooking the pond in 3B. We have nothing on the north side of 3B there.
Sure.
And so, will be some time before that fills in.
Yeah.
However, I understand, in a perfect world, we wouldn't be doing the sequencing game, but it's really hard to know when
No, I understand completely.
yeah.
My curiosity is make sure that we don't end up with parking on both sides of the street, you can't get anything through there, let alone a garbage truck, school bus. I don't know what the school's procedure or where they're at as far as drop off and pickups, but from a fire department standpoint, I think it's just gotta be wide enough to get through, period.
Greg, I think what we try to do is once the development's complete, then we assess which side of one street. We usually pick a side, have the
Sure.
streets department work on that. I think what we could do is have that one of the conditions of the preliminary plat, that so long as this is a street without, that doesn't go through, that it remains parking on one side.
One side.
And that's established now. Now, it doesn't mean it has to stay on that side once it's through, it can get switched, and the streets committee could figure out which is the best side. But council could designate that the expectation, would that be on both? Would that be on part 3 and part 3B and part 4, that those are both one lane or parking on one side only? And then can be reassessed once
Yeah.
it's through. Okay,
Cause otherwise I could see it getting very narrow very fast.
yeah, I think you're right.
and that's kind of what happened down on the Windflower, right? Is
Mhm.
it's a little bit, the 4 is gonna have a little bit more density because the lots are a little small. And down on Windflower, I think was before I was on council, that they changed that to no parking on one side, and then from the index park,
Yeah.
commercial shops all the way down to Howard 1, no parking.
And something to consider, the smaller lots means driveways are more frequent. There's less opportunities to park in between.
Yeah.
The driveways. So that is, you know, the chain reaction of having those smaller lots is less space between the driveways.
On the smaller lot would be 2-car garage, right?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, there's really not enough.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
My question on that would be, what would the width of the driveway be? I asked that because that's a good place for people to park their cars rather than on the street.
Mhm. Sure, yeah, fair concern.
Or do you have a general?
I should have brought a prelim plat that shows the actual dimension, but
16-foot garage,
what's that?
16-foot garage, or about 20-foot drive.
Yeah, you end up contouring out to about 26, you know, tapers.
Yep. Yep.
But usually about 26 across
Okay.
there, but you're right.
Well,
When you enter the,
You gotta count the actual park.
right. So there's not, you know, there's not a ton of space there.
Yeah.
Tim, outside of the kind of concerns and questions we have, do you have anything question wise, comment, concern?
No, I mean, I'm assuming when you talk about a turnaround, are you talking about just a little dump off to pull in, back out? You're talking about like a circle.
Well, usually what we do is an actual hammerhead, so there's, you know, T there, so you can actually, you know, you can get in there and you can turn around and go back out. That's most common.
Similar to what you have shown on part 4.
You know,
Would the council, I guess, the reason I'm gonna bring this up is because we've done a variety. We've allowed a temporary cul-de-sac that's gravel or hammerhead that is concrete.
I would think it would need to be concrete, just with this, the size and the size of the vehicles that are gonna be.
Hard to plow that too if it's gravel.
Yeah.
That would be a bigger mess, maybe, right? You hear that concrete?
Well, I'd rather have concrete.
I would agree.
Or asphalt if it's temporary.
Yeah.
Something hard,
Yeah.
something hard surface, something hard surface.
Be removed. and-
yeah, I mean, that,
Something that when you
Guys
get,
down there, right?
when you get any freeze and thaws, is you don't have,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about vehicles sinking down for fuel.
Yeah.
The heavier vehicles.
Dave, sorry, sorry to put you on the spot, but I just want to get your thoughts. Aside from the things that we've talked about, do you see any concerns from a plowing standpoint or anything? Related to what you guys did?
My only concern with plowing is that we have to back down. Something about the beacons on the plow trucks that like attract cars like moths. People.
So it's not,
They
So
drive
it's-
straight to the snowplow.
It's gonna be beeping all, when they're plowing at 4, they're gonna be beeping at 4 o'clock in the morning, backing down there.
That, you know, it's just a safety concern backing back into a T intersection or
yes.
Boston intersection.
I guess.
Are the water mains looped? Are they gonna be dead ends? On those two
Right
streets?
now, I don't believe they go all the way through, do they?
from 3B to 3A, no, it doesn't.
I think it.
Part 5 is
Right at the start.
that
Okay.
expense of just putting that street and the sewer and the water all in is significant for part 5.
Sure. There have been any issues as far as, I know as we talked with McBride, Point Connect that is helping cycle the water in the line. Is it an issue with the line to run there as far as the water testing?
Yeah, because with our flushing, those are some those dead ends are the priority hydrants, so we move the water out.
Okay.
But as more houses are built, you just move the water way back.
So just to kind of recap what I'm hearing, jump in if I've captured any of this incorrectly, though, it sounds like there's the forward as is, as long as we have that hammerhead or a way to turn around on 3B as well as, part 4 kind of had shown.
Yes, that's right.
Assuming the one side is.
Or in one side.
Yeah, once that, yes.
That's gonna make it easier for them with plows too.
Yeah.
Because they, they're not backing down. And then-
You know, like asphalt.
Yeah.
Like
You
asphalt.
know, I can go back and push it
Certainly,
down.
like, one word is just-
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Randy, any questions that you have for us or any concerns with kind of the feedback that we've?
No, I mean, I think Dave and Cammy and Adam and I spoke about probably the desire to have some turnaround there at the end of 3B. Obviously, 4 is paved and there's a great spot to maneuver and turn it back around. You know, the only question would be is, you know, on 3B, is that something that, you know, compacted rock? So you're not putting in concrete where you're eventually gonna have homes and lots, basically on both sides of the street. That would be the only, but we are open to working with what works with them to make that turnaround doable, so.
Yes, no, right, that's,
I,
would be our preference.
yeah, I think that would probably be the most temporary, right?
Kind of hard surface, definitely,
Yeah.
yeah, rock would be completely out of the question.
So it'd be some type of hard surface that wouldn't cause long-term issues or costs. Probably has it.
There's gotta be a cost.
Yeah, there will be a cost,
But,
but
there will be a cost to you, I apologize about that. In order to jump like this, there has to be some kind of, yes,
but it,
exactly.
asphalt has a lower cost.
It takes money to make money.
Yeah, I'm fine with asphalt.
You don't have to put a curb in
The easier possible.
Randy, thanks for coming in, just kind
Yeah.
of talking through that, being open to the feedback.
Yep.
With that, appreciate you guys,
Thank
great
you.
to work with and, excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, great.
If you need action, on that, if you need.
Nope, just wanted to make sure council was in support before, you know, going through the formal process.
it. We'll say it again. Planning and zoning might have a different take on it.
Planning, it'll go to, once they submit their formal application, will go to planning and zoning in May and then come back to the city council sometime in June. Once again, jumping phases creates some legal work that has to happen behind the scenes. So as soon as that's all caught up, but it'll go to planning and zoning first and then it'll come back to council in June sometime.
With that, it takes us to item 7. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Farmer, second by Gordon, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?